In sport, the gender of an athlete determines a lot of unseen or unthought of things that happen to them. This doesn't start when they're an adult either, but rather starts during their upbringing. During the upbringing of a child, throughout history and still up to this day, boys and girls have been treated different, not only with what they do, but with subtle things like their clothes and their toys, and what role models they are shown from an early age. Young boys are usually exposed to things like superheroes and hands-on toys like Lego and being active. This therefore leads them in the future to growing up to pursue and enjoy taking on more hands-on tough things, like different sports. Boys' role models from a young age are also more likely to be superheroes, who are shown out to be physical and active. Girls, however, from a young age are typically exposed to things like dolls, dressing up, and given role models of princesses, who aren't active but rather wait to be saved, rather than going out and doing physical demanding things themselves. Also, girls are typically more protected than boys from a younger age, and all while they grow up. This again lets boys have more freedom to try more things and learn from mistakes quicker, and then also see what they do and don't like to do quicker, as they have more opportunity. This affects how they grow up and what they want to do, as boys will typically start with more physical things from a much earlier age than girls, like sports, which leads them to have a higher standard only because they have been playing the sports for longer. Obviously, this is generalised to make a point, and nowadays things are changing and girls have more and more role models that are forward thinking and independent, which will hopefully change the idea that they cannot be doing physical things from a young age, which in the long run will increase their sporting performance levels as well. This is all down to the socialisation of the child, and what they watch and see is what they learn and develop into doing themselves in later life. Also, with the growing up of boys and girls throughout secondary school and teenage years, for teenagers it feels important for a lot of them to have to fit in. This also leads to an increase in performance and participation levels for the boys, as it's a stereotypical thing for them to do and take part in sport, whereas for girls it's stereotypical for them to not be taking part in sport, which leads them to having lower participation levels, as they typically would not take part in sport. So taking part would counteract them wanting to fit in. The media also have a huge impact and part to do with gender in sport. This relates to what's shown in the media, with the sports pages and newspapers and websites being mainly dominated by men's sports, and only 3 to 4 men's sports at that. This overhaul of men's sports being included on these newspapers and websites means that women's sports news is rarely picked up on by the mass public, who go to these places to get their news. Without the public being able to have easy access to the women's sport, it results in the interest for it not being generated, and also displays a facade to females that want to get a facade to females that want to get into sport that there isn't much women's sport going on, when in reality there is as much women's sport going on as males, but it just isn't being picked up on by the media. This will also have an influence on young girls who want to get into sport, as it means they will struggle to get role models and get interest for the sport, as they only have access to the men's sports through these websites and newspapers. However, it is easier than ever now to get news about women's sport, even if it isn't as heavily as reported as men's. With the introduction of the internet, news sites are being able to upload as much as they want, which means they don't have to rule out news articles for space, like on newspapers, for more popular stories, but they can just put everything on their website so it can all be accessed. The media also shows differences between the genders in interviews and what they talk about. This is because generally with men's sports, they will, in the post-match interviews, talk about the game, how it went, if they think they played well, how to improve, and all that sort of thing. Whereas a lot of the time with women's sports, they focus heavily on what they were wearing, or their hair, and stereotypical girly things like that. This gives a negative perception of female performers, as it gives the impression that the media don't think that people want to know their views on the game, but rather women watching would rather like to see what they wear or how they did their hair, which isn't the case. They're watching for the same reasons as everyone else, which is for the sport. The final issue with gender in sport is in the marketing. Marketing in the sport is a huge moneymaker for a lot of companies. And one of the easiest ways to market products is if it's directed at a wide target demographic. This is because if there is a wider demographic, more people are going to be more likely to buy it. And one of the easiest ways to get a large demographic is by dividing products to focus on males and females, as it's a natural divide and a company is for everyone in the world. However, how they market these products is where the issues come in. Products for the younger children are usually split that boys typically have red or blue things, like clothes, shoes, or toys, and will have superheroes on them, and words like "I can do it" or "next best footballer," for example. However, girls' things will be marketed in pink or yellow, stereotypically, and will not have empowering words on them, but rather have things like "I'm a princess" as an example. This marketing divide also subconsciously molds what the children think they can and can't do, and how they are, which again links to the first part about socialization. In what they see, they start to become. And with the marketing for what they play with and wear being so different, it's no wonder boys and girls end up thinking and acting differently in the long run over the sports and participating in them.